Story 1. Depression is very nuanced, but I changed my environment. Your mood directly correlates with your surroundings. Story 2. Avoiding and unfriending negative individuals. Many of them believe that depression is simply a mindset you can overcome. Story 3. I stopped drinking and using drugs. I dove headfirst into my passion, working for myself to afford it instead of living paycheck to paycheck. I started working out and joined volunteer firefighting. Now, I am 7 years sober. Although I am currently too busy to volunteer for firefighting, I know you will get through this. You will look back and see how far you have grown. Whenever I feel stuck or think my life is terrible, I remember how far I have come from the lowest point when I held a gun in my mouth. Story 4. I experienced major depression from the ages of 15 to 34 until I sought a second opinion. It turned out I had bipolar disorder type 1 and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Not only did selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors do nothing for me, they weren't even intended to. I started taking an antipsychotic and stimulant medication, and it felt like color was drained back into my life. I don't walk around with rainbows, but I am not sad. That's a significant deal. I can now focus on what people say to me, remember much of what they say, and look people in the eye and connect. I was just surviving before. If things aren't aligning, it's wise to see a doctor. There may be more going on beneath the surface. Story 5. I will be honest with you. Depression is not a once-in-a-while kind of thing, at least not for me. Your mind is what you are fighting against. It comes up with negative thoughts or scenarios instead of positive ones. The only way to combat that is by stimulating your brain in other ways to find peace. I tell anyone who asks that it is ultimately about keeping yourself busy, which is different from just working all day. Your life is yours, not anyone else's. So you have to find positive ways to stimulate your mind, no matter how challenging your situation or how bad your mood is. Otherwise, you will spiral. For example, if you know you have to work a 12-hour shift, find little ways to make your day better. Pack a nicer lunch for yourself, or take on a new project at work. It depends on your day-to-day experiences. The moment you begin to think negatively, it is more about how you handle or recover from that, because it is not unusual to think negatively. We are human. Think and talk positively about yourself. Don't even joke in a negative way about yourself. It may sound trivial, but the tiniest things that add up can really make a difference over time. I hope you find peace and can take something positive from this. Story 6. I guess I can say I never fully escape it. It's a part of me like an appendage. You can dress it up or cover it, talk about it or ignore it, but it will always be there. It's not entirely bad. I can recognize hurt in people and know how to listen to those who are depressed. I know the jokes that make them laugh. I understand suffering well, though not as well as others, so I tend to be more compassionate towards the less fortunate than the neighbor who is trying to keep the squirrels out of the feeder. Soul-crushing poverty and suburban frustrations all deserve their appropriate responses. Story 7. Lots of therapy, but the big game changer was transcranial magnetic stimulation. It involves using a magnet to stimulate the brain for an hour a day, 5 days a week, for 7 weeks. Story 8. I didn't. It's still here and it's not going away. However, I found the right medication dosage and went to therapy to work on different skills needed to move forward. Story 9. Sorry if I sound corny, but I remind myself that I am not finished yet. I believe I am here for a purpose beyond what I can see on a daily basis. If it is not my time yet, then I will not force it. Story 10. I traveled to Thailand, Bali, Ghana, Jamaica, Belize, Costa Rica, Tanzania, Puerto Rico, Puerto Vallarta, and Cabo. I aim to go to one destination every 6 months. I also started walking for 30 minutes a day and watching anime, including Naruto, Bleach, and One Piece, while reading manga and manhwa and cooking outdoors. I speak to strangers daily and make sure to smile. I decided to reduce my time on social media and have called my parents and friends. I choose to distance myself from people who are not positive for my mindset. Story 11. Exercise, being in nature, seeing family and friends even when I would rather isolate, maintaining good sleep hygiene, and achieving small goals like getting dressed, making my bed, showering, cleaning one dish, or eating one meal are all important. Additionally, therapy and a combination of medications, along with ketamine therapy and transcranial magnetic stimulation, play a significant role. It is a work in progress, but these strategies are essential for managing my feelings of sadness. Story 12. Your doctor has many medications for that. If one doesn't work, there are many others. Took me 3 tries. Effexor was the worst. I still get random brain zap twitches every once in a while. Story 13. Lifting weights. There is a significant difference between clinical depression and feeling down for a specific reason. Story 14. Getting out of bed, exercising, painting, trying new hobbies, stopping the tendency to see things worse than they truly are, and romanticizing simple things in life as much as I could. Story 15. Antidepressants in therapy helped me accept that I am an alcoholic and needed assistance. I was also in a position to change jobs and focus on self-improvement. Took time. Story 16. I was illegally terminated in retaliation for being a whistleblower, and I decided to move on. Since I feel unemployable due to my ethics, I started doing what I wanted to do, writing fantasy fiction. It doesn't pay very well, and I'm uncertain about my future in it. I'm using my savings while living the life of a starving artist, but I'm happier than I was when I had to navigate around corrupt politicians and dishonest bosses and coworkers. Story 17. I have treatment-resistant depression and have tried various medications. I underwent transcranial magnetic stimulation last summer, and it really helped. I still take Remeron and Zoloft, and I have a great therapist. I don't think I'll ever be free of depression, but I no longer cry for 6 to 7 hours every day for no reason, and I can get out of bed much easier. I don't know what normal feels like, but I think this is as close as I'll get, and it feels nice. Story 18. The issue is that for some individuals, it never completely disappears. I have been free from depression for about a year, but I know it will return. It always does. The key for me is to go outside and feel like a person. Hug a tree, kneel in some mud, eat a blade of grass. Just do something to remind yourself that you belong in the absurdity of existence. Most importantly, have patience, as recovery from depression takes time. Story 19. I will let you know if I ever do. Until my wife kicks her drug habit, I will probably stay depressed. Story 20. Natural language processing through Udemy changed my life. Exercise stimulated my nervous system. Stopping cannabis use was helpful in the beginning, but it later made me very introverted and depressed. When you are sitting alone at home using drugs, that is when it becomes a problem, in my opinion. Story 21. I walked away from my relatives. It has been the best decision for my depression and anxiety. I used to visit the hospital every few months due to extreme anxiety and an inability to calm my heart rate. I experienced depression with psychosis, but it's all gone now. I enjoy my life, and even with the chronic pain I have, I still find joy in my day and feel grateful for the little things. Life doesn't seem so dire anymore. Story 22. Paxil, the happy pink pill, changed everything for me. I also use lorazepam for especially tough days. I've been spending a lot of time hiking and enjoying the outdoors. Story 23. A combination of prescription medications, many years of therapy, leaving an abusive situation, and finding financial stability were all significant factors in overcoming my last hurdle. However, the most important factor was practicing gratitude and actively seeking out things in the world that made me happy, no matter how small. It takes practice to take a walk, look at a tree, and think to yourself, the fall leaves are so beautiful, and I'm happy I'm here to see them. I know it sounds cliché, but actively working to rewire your brain to find positivity instead of negativity and understanding that you can only change the things you can change, while realizing you still have agency over your life and how you cope with hardship, finally broke me out of depression after nearly 20 years. Story 24. Time. I am gradually taking steps to do the things I know I need to do. I removed myself from toxic situations to focus on my healing. I have talked to friends about my struggles and realized that both healing and feeling stuck are challenging. I might as well choose the path that will make my life better and more fulfilling. I also stopped smoking marijuana and significantly reduced my alcohol consumption. Story 25. Therapy. Medication, time, and finding meaningful pursuits have helped me. It took several years, but I've been stable ever since, and I am forever thankful that I didn't give up on myself. Story 26. I hated the situation I was in, knowing that not doing anything would only make it worse. Essentially, no one is coming to save you but yourself. I accept that there will be days when I will feel overwhelmed, even if there is nothing wrong. In my opinion, it never completely goes away, but you get better at dealing with it through experience. Story 27. I kept pushing myself to get up and do things I did not want to do. I made new friends, forced myself to go out, got a new job, and moved to a different place. Eventually, I began to feel happy, and I noticed that when I made the effort to go out, I would be busy and, for brief moments, forget my sadness. This ultimately led to new hobbies, new goals, and a work promotion. I also met my wife. Story 28. A wonderful psychiatrist named Rachel Davis saved my life. I was barely surviving for 10 years and had stopped hoping things would get better, having been hospitalized over 10 times. Then my mom got a new job and moved. I became so sick that I had to move back in with my parents. My mom used her connections at her new job, and I was able to start seeing this psychiatrist. That was a couple of years ago, and I am starting to actually enjoy life again. It's strange. Story 29. I hit rock bottom, spent a winter homeless, and lost many great friends. Getting sober helped. Being forced to sleep in a small sedan in 20-degree weather for a week or two will genuinely motivate you quickly. Story 30. Moving my body, sunshine, and therapy combined are essential for my well-being. I need to maintain all three. It's the magic solution. Story 31. Feeling Good by Dr. David D. Burns. Incredible book. Do you have depression? Do you want to get healthy again? Read the book, take notes, and follow the professional's advice. Story 32. Depression can often be caused by a vitamin or mineral deficiency. It can be as simple as having a folate deficiency. If there does not seem to be any particular catalyst, reason, or cause for the depression, you might want to consider malnutrition. Story 33. I don't believe you can ever fully overcome depression. You learn to live with the burden and function alongside it. At least that's what I do. Story 34. Lack of time. Depression takes effort, and that is a luxury I cannot afford. I have things to do, but maybe doing things for myself will help me cope with my depression. Who knows? Story 35. By pure random chance, I had to stay awake for almost 2 days straight with no sleep. It turns out that controlled sleep deprivation is actually a clinical treatment for some types of depression. Story 36. Zoloft and weekly therapy. I have since graduated to monthly therapy because I am doing so well, but I still take Zoloft daily. Story 37. Drugs led me to a mindset of indifference, but I discovered unfiltered, genuine happiness. I realized I could experience that consistently, so I pursued it and completely transformed my life for the better. I became happier and healthier. Story 38. A lot of times it's not something you can easily escape. The question should be clarified to determine whether you're discussing a temporary slump or consistent clinical depression. If you want to learn more from a trusted and knowledgeable source, I suggest exploring Dr. Robert Sapolsky's lectures at Yale University. He states early in one lecture, if I had to define major depression in one sentence, I would say it's a biochemical disorder with a genetic component and early experiences influence where someone can't appreciate sunsets. As someone who has lived with major depression for most of my life, I have never heard a better description of it. I apologize if my response is a bit off topic for your question, but if you believe you are experiencing major depression, please seek help from a medical professional as soon as possible. The sooner you get assistance and it starts to be managed, the more of your life you will get to live. Best of luck. Story 39. Focusing on making time for the activities I enjoy is important. Spending time outside and exercising also contributes to my well-being. Ultimately, time helps to heal emotional wounds. The deepest depression I experienced was due to difficult life circumstances, but having the time to process my feelings greatly assisted in my recovery. Story 40. I haven't entirely figured it out, Knowing oneself is my mantra. Meditation and confronting challenges make it better. I have to put in the work and find faith to overcome fear. Story 41. I asked my general practitioner and was prescribed antidepressants. While stable, I started new exercise routines and became more active. I weaned myself off the medication and continued exercising and pursuing new interests. I haven't looked back. That was 6 years ago. Story 42. Fake it until you make it. Therapy. My dog. I still experience periods of depression occasionally, but it has improved. Story 43. Antidepressants involve taking proactive steps such as getting sunlight, exercising, engaging in social interactions, and practicing positive self-talk. Story 44. Someone told me to harm myself. I am determined. I searched online for a place with a low cost of living, and a month later, I took the money I had saved for a car and instead paid a 6-month lease outright on a small apartment in Nebraska. I had never lived in the continental United States and didn't know anyone within 1,000 miles, but I needed a break. I joined a role-playing game, developed social skills, and walked a lot. I lived there for 2 years. Story 45. I stopped talking about it and focused on being a better listener. Since life had already humbled me, I concentrated on learning more about humility and where I put my energy. I now value the strength it takes, though I still feel sad for those who haven't reached that point yet. I also distanced myself from negative people and music. Story 46. Medication puts me at the same starting line as everyone else instead of 200 feet behind everyone else choosing to have a good day. I want a good day too. Story 47. I have treatment-resistant major depressive disorder, both medicated and non-medicated, so my only choice is to continue as usual. Keeping myself in check and maintaining a routine helps prevent me from spiraling further. Story 48. You must first want to stop feeling depressed enough to take action. Then, decide what would bring you the most concrete and genuine satisfaction in life and create a plan to achieve that. It worked for me. It's not a quick fix, but I don't feel depressed as often now. Took years, but I was making progress and I understood it would take time. Story 49. Forcing myself to do things for others. For me, depression stems from too much introspection and not enough focus on the outside world. It's hard for me to stay depressed when I spend 2 hours on my hands and knees playing with toy trucks alongside my 4-year-old. Story 50. I love that David Cross routine where he discusses his lifelong battle with depression and finally realizes that there was just a rock in his shoe. Story 51. Therapy, getting properly medicated, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, and allowing the depressive episodes to run their course rather than berating myself for having them. Story 52. It turns out I have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, a lifetime of trauma responses, and experiences living with a malignant narcissist. I received a diagnosis and began processing everything after I escaped the day-to-day chaos caused by someone who twists lies into truths and punishes those who do not accept the new truths. Honestly, please check for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Story 53. I never left. I just have fewer miserable days than others. I take short breaks here and there. I try to stay busy so my mind has less time to dwell on things. Story 54. Medication, therapy, self-help, and a constant focus on mental health are essential. Change your diet, start exercising, engage in social activities, prioritize self-care, and refrain from drinking and smoking. Story 55. Quit drinking alcohol. I have battled extreme depression for a long time. I was amazed at how, after just a few days without alcohol, my mental outlook became clearer, and I felt more stable in general. It was like a natural antidepressant just having the alcohol out of my system. I highly recommend trying this even for a little while as a mental reset. Story 56. I have been on an antidepressant for 5 months, then switched to multivitamins. I do not want to jinx it, but I have been feeling normal and stable since I started taking multivitamins. Story 57. I had to pretend to like myself and congratulate myself on every small task for months before I slowly started to believe those affirmations over my negative thoughts. I have setbacks, but reminding myself that most of my thoughts are intrusive and not true helps me return to a positive state of mind. When all else fails, I cry, engage in another activity, and write down those thoughts so they aren't lingering in my mind. Story 58. I keep telling myself how life could be so much worse. Even if it's a breakup or a death, life is worth living. I think of my favorite shows that I want to watch. I do a lot of DIY projects. Story 59. I microdosed for a while. I engaged in a lot of therapy and worked on my thought patterns. I cut people out of my life and focused on routines. I am still a work in progress. Story 60. Overall, seek support. Find a therapist you feel comfortable with and talk to physicians about medications that could help. Daily, drink water and nourish your body in whatever ways you can. Move in any way that feels good, whether it's walking around the block or stretching. Talk with someone you care about every day, and be kind to yourself. Story 61. I realize that time will pass regardless, so I can either spend the next years feeling depressed or I can take action. It is also a man's responsibility to seek solutions, and I had to accept that. Story 62. There is no "I used to have depression." It is a lifelong challenge, in my opinion. I try to stay busy. If I have too much time to sit and think, it usually leads to negative thoughts. I also try to focus on helping others. If I feel people need me or that I can contribute to making the world a little better, then I can keep myself afloat. Story 63. Years of therapy have helped me change the way I see things and how I experience what is happening around me. Additionally, medication has played a role. It has greatly helped me to stop acting. I show my true face and real emotions. I no longer pretend that everything is okay if it's not. My behavior is very consistent with my feelings. This approach has been incredibly beneficial. Story 64. I started therapy. I found the strength to make an appointment with a doctor, and I am trying my best. Story 65. I ask my friends and family to give me chores so I can get out of bed in the morning. These are tasks I cannot avoid, and when I promise to do something, I will not back out. Story 66. It took me a while, but I needed to get medication to stabilize myself. I have been engaging in therapy, visiting my psychiatrist, pursuing hobbies, and forcing myself to go outside, mainly spending time with my dad for good bonding. I am pushing myself to go to work, getting off the couch, and cleaning the house. I watched a lot of self-help content online and listened to podcasts. There are also books available if you enjoy reading. Story 67. Action. It's challenging. Seeking help, socializing, making friends, exercising, and pursuing a better job. Story 68. I did not get out of it, and I do not think you can, but I learned to live with it. There was a phase of therapy, meditation, and medication, but the one thing that turned out to be my primary remedy was daily exercise. Story 69. Exercise is beneficial. The hardest part is showing up, but once I get into a routine, it has a significant positive impact on my mental health. I find that spending time outdoors and away from technology and the internet is also extremely helpful. However, I never completely escape from depression. It is a constant presence that I acknowledge, and I try to move forward with my life despite it. Story 70. Exercise is essential. People suggest various health tips. Avoid drugs, get sufficient sleep, meditate, and limit alcohol consumption. In my experience, while those suggestions are valuable, I emphasize the importance of going to the gym, even if you do not feel motivated. Commit to at least 10 minutes of high-intensity cardio, even if that is all you can manage. Aim for 5 days a week without skipping. The benefits are significant. Story 71. My supportive partner, my dog, exercise, therapy, proper nutrition, and antidepressants play a significant role in my well-being. I cannot guarantee it will work for you, but I can almost promise that without exercise, therapy, medications, and nutrition, it won't. It takes time and effort. I still have bad days and sometimes terrible days, but the lows are not as deep and the duration is shorter. About 2 months ago, I caught myself saying "excellent" sincerely when asked how I was doing. I hadn't said that in at least a decade, and I was surprised by my response. Can get better. Take care. and I wish you nothing but the best. I hope you find contentment in the future. Story 72. I kid you not, Reddit helped me the most. The kindness that came from anonymous strangers when I needed it the most was heartwarming. It pulled me out of a really dark place in 2021. Story 73. When I feel sad, I focus on being awesome instead. Doing things that I enjoy helps take my mind off whatever is bothering me. It is important to talk about my feelings with trusted friends. Story 74. I visited a psychiatrist and started medication. Felt like I was drowning and barely keeping my head above water, but after 2 to 3 weeks of taking the medication, my life changed significantly. Story 75. I was hospitalized this time last year. It crept up on me little by little until I realized it had been years since I felt joy. Doctors overloaded me with antidepressants, which smothered the life I had left. However, over the last year, I decreased the amount of antidepressants and started microdosing ketamine and taking low-dose medications for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. My life has completely turned around. I now volunteer, look forward to the seasons, and consistently work out. I can say I now feel joy. It actually surprised me when I realized it. I took charge and found my way with the help of my doctor and therapist. You can too. Good luck and Godspeed. Story 76. I turned into Forrest Gump and kept running until I felt better. I have a hard time processing my feelings, and there isn't a one-size-fits-all solution, so I do what works for me. I ran to manage my daily life, then focused on other aspects. It's still a struggle, but with some useful coping skills, I am handling it in a healthy way. Story 77. I first struggled with depression about 10 years ago when my mom suddenly became ill. It hit me hard, so much that I was nearly suicidal. I'm not sure what exactly pulled me out of it, but I had my aging dog to care for, which gave me a sense of responsibility and comfort. I also formed a short-lived connection with someone who gave me the attention I desperately needed at the time, though it ended quickly after I found out he was married with a child. Still, it helped in the moment, and I turned to music a lot during that period. More recently, in-person therapy, medication, and light therapy have helped me manage my mental health. But what really made a difference was leaving the job that got me to that point and moving into my own space. I still experience depressive episodes, but they're not nearly as severe as they used to be. When I feel myself slipping, I try to be outside as much as possible for sunlight, and I travel when I can to get a change of scenery. Story 78. Turn off the news. Get off social media. Get up and do something that makes you smile. Talk to like-minded people in support groups. Get some fresh air. Go for walks. Cook your favorite meal. Take a moment to receive a hug. Hugs help. Story 79. I stopped drinking and then went on a beach vacation with a close friend. This friendship was important because we didn't have expectations to stay up all night talking or do everything together. We spent a lot of time individually but went out to eat and participated in a few activities together. After that, we became even closer friends. Story 80. Exercise, quit alcohol for a while, and engage in hobbies. I also needed to eliminate tasks I had procrastinated on. Story 81. I realized that a lot of depression is related to physical health. To improve your mental well-being, it is important to focus on getting healthy. A healthy body leads to a healthy mind, which can help you address the issues in your life that cause depression and enable you to cope with things you cannot control. Additionally, ensure that you do not have any underlying health issues. Some people may have an imbalanced dopamine system that contributes to their depression, and they might need medication for it. Story 82. Combination of various elements. Traditional psychiatric medications, outpatient therapy, residential treatment, partial hospitalization, and intensive outpatient programs. Developing a regular sleep schedule, setting career, life, and relationship goals, exercising, engaging in community activities that promote interaction with others, esketamine, and discovering hobbies that I enjoy. Story 83. Gym, working, finding the right girl, leaving old friends behind, listening to upbeat music. No drinks, no drugs, no social media. Hobbies. Story 84. Honestly, I haven't fully overcome my struggles, but I have worked on myself and improved, finding a healthy relationship. It has become less of an issue over time, though I still have off days. Essentially, while I still experience depression, I no longer suffer from it. Story 85. I will listen to music and engage in productive tasks to avoid feelings of depression. Story 86. Therapy. Surrounding myself with better people and having positive influences have made my life much better. Story 87. I didn't. It's still here. It's just not as relentlessly overpowering all the time. What helped me get a better handle on it? Pharmaceuticals, finding the right ones took about a decade. Therapy, outpatient, inpatient, and intensive outpatient. Electroconvulsive therapy, also known as shock therapy, it made some very positive, permanent changes so far, but it negatively affected my memory. Understanding my other diagnoses, comorbidities make things more complex. Story 88. I was horribly depressed for years, and I still am, but this was the worst. I was ignoring my wife and kids, and I don't know how I managed to keep a job. Then we started sitting on the couch and talking one night. That led to another night, and we kept going. We'd snuggle, kiss, and hold each other. Then things progressed. I got out of my depression's worst part by realizing how bad of a husband I had been and seeing what I almost lost. Thanks to intimacy, I am no longer as depressed, and I am a much better husband and father. And well, it's a lot of fun. Story 89. Mushrooms, to be honest. I was just trying to get trippy, and I definitely did often. Then one of my experiences felt more like a spiritual journey. It was as if I were watching my memories through the eyes of an acquaintance or a stranger. I didn't realize it was me until I was coming down and really processing everything that happened. I now microdose, and I feel brighter, alert, and best of all, functional. My current routine is 3 days on and 2 days off, rinse and repeat. I'll occasionally take a week or two off just to keep my tolerance levels low. Tip: take vitamin B12 daily to help with the hangover on your off days. Edit. Don't get me wrong, I still have depression. There are days, even when on a dose, where I just physically and mentally feel stuck. But those days are less severe and less frequent than they used to be. Story 90. This is not a long-term cure, but a temporary relief. I watched Eric Andre skits. Something about the insanity and absurdity of it all feels like releasing a pressure valve on my brain. Story 91. Electroconvulsive therapy, medications, therapy, and pushing myself to do the things that I don't want to do but that make me feel productive. Aiming for mental neutrality, not happiness. Story 92. By being an optimist, I went through some traumatic experiences in my 20s. Some days I just wanted to give up. However, I have always believed that things can only get better, and eventually, they did. Story 93. Maybe it's not for everyone, but cannabis helped me get out of my head and slowly start doing things I enjoyed. Provided me with a community of others who liked to relax and engage in activities together. We would smoke and go fishing, play golf, or play pool. The dark cloud began to lift, and before I knew it, I started smoking less and now don't smoke at all. I recognize it's not for everyone because I've seen it make some people paranoid. But for me, it was a lifesaver. My life is now very productive and prosperous, but someday in my golden years, I'd like to return to smoking daily. Maybe this will help someone. Story 94. I started a good medication, Lexapro, which is one of the most recommended brands for women. I also began seeing a very good therapist. My life changed significantly, allowing me to live without many anxiety-inducing factors. My cats provided immense comfort, as did my supportive partner, who is now also on medication and seeing the same therapist. Story 95. Time, good books, good movies, leaning on friends, and self-care until it slowly got better. Being honest with loved ones about how much I was struggling helped me feel seen and not shameful or alone. Additionally, having a dog kept me active. Story 96. Fighting hard. I battle against my habits, negative friends, enablers, and judgment. I refuse to let it defeat me. Sometimes it does, but I can say that I have more victories now. On those challenging days, I realized that fighting won't help. Story 97. I sought therapy and started medication, which helped me significantly. I no longer have dark thoughts of self-harm, and my aggression has decreased greatly. I lost my loved one in November, so it's difficult to determine if I'm feeling depressed again or just grieving. Therapists say it's normal to feel this way, but I should start to feel like myself again at some point. Story 98. For me, it was transcranial magnetic stimulation. Medications, therapy, and just living with it didn't help. It literally saved my life. If everything else has failed for you, please look into transcranial magnetic stimulation. Story 99. Therapy and getting to the root of things. I've never let myself get down. I am always busy, always chasing dreams, having fun, loving people, and living life. However, I never addressed my issues, and they all surfaced because I ran from them. I'm healing now. Story 100. Be delusional and recognize what is making you sad. Don't think that it doesn't exist or that something else is going well. It oddly works. Story 101. I realized my day was better and went by quicker when I was in a better mood. I can't control everything, but slightly increasing my antidepressant was very helpful. Story 102. You don't really ever get out of it. There are good stretches and bad stretches. Some great tools that have helped me during my bad days, though everyone is different and I'm not a doctor. Cold showers creates dopamine. Dark chocolate, pet cuddles, enjoying something I truly love about the world. For me, rain and thunderstorms are my happy place. Mood-supporting probiotics, meditation, regular exercise, very little alcohol intake. Sugar and caffeine are good pick-me-ups. I'm also on medication, which I cannot recommend enough. I tell people that I became the person I always knew I was when I started taking prescription medication. It was totally a game changer in the best way, though finding the right medication was definitely a process. Story 103. I have not found anything specific. Comes and goes. When it comes, I deal with it the best I can until it goes. Story 104. Read Timber Hawkeye's book, Buddhist Boot Camp, and use the principles taught in the book to change my perception of events. Your brain is like a spoiled child. Story 105. I went through a midlife crisis, so I took omega-3 to help improve my mood. Something positive happened in my life that helped pull me out of it. It was the worst few months mentally that I have ever experienced, as I had never dealt with depression before. Story 106. Microdosing psychedelics, paying attention to my breathing throughout the day, not just during meditation, as depression causes shallow breathing. Lifting weights, setting goals, being kind, and helping others are essential practices for me. I understand suffering well. Story 107. I haven't been able to get my mind right in a long time, but sometimes a simple breathing exercise helps calm my depression, anxiety, and mania. I focus on breathing deeply and slowly at each count. Story 108. Drugs. I mean, literally, drugs. I was undiagnosed with bipolar disorder type 1 until I was 36, and then while in the hospital, I finally got a proper diagnosis and medication. I literally thought it was normal for everyone to have a voice in their head constantly providing reasons and ways to end it. Since starting medication, that voice has mostly disappeared, allowing me to focus on choosing and fighting for joy. Story 109. It's a combination of things in absolutely no particular order. 1. Antidepressants. 2. Ketamine therapy. 3. Dialectical behavioral therapy, talk therapy, or traditional therapy to ensure my behaviors align with my values, even if the emotions are strong or contradictory. 4. Reduced social media use. 5. Forcing myself to engage in activities I have traditionally enjoyed while allowing myself grace if I cannot participate in every opportunity. 6. A strong support system and learning to say goodbye to those who aren't growing or aren't growing in the same direction I want to. Story 110. I try to find things to appreciate. I dislike the increasing rent, but I am thankful that I can still pay my rent and have a roof over my head. Story 111. Antidepressants, mushrooms, exercise, self-compassion, and a commitment to setting small goals such as exercising daily for at least 30 minutes, especially outdoors for sunlight exposure, are all beneficial. Psilocybin is highly recommended. Story 112. I changed the things that got me down. I surrounded myself with positive people, got a new job, and joined a spa as a hobby to relax. I had been really depressed and lost my confidence to the point where I couldn't even look at the postman when I had to answer the door. I would just look at the floor and couldn't be bothered showering or taking care of myself. I felt I had lost my spark and my confidence, which led me to stay in a job I was miserable at for far too long. I didn't think anyone else would want me or that I could even pass an interview. I saw an image that had a picture of a girl who looked like me, and it said, she remembered who she was, and the game changed. This made me realize I had lost myself completely. I had gone from being confident and sociable to someone who didn't care about themselves and avoided my friends. That saying stuck with me, and I decided I needed to get myself back. It motivated me. I started with hygiene, showering daily and brushing my teeth. Slowly, some of my confidence began to return. I felt ready to go for an interview, so I started applying for jobs. Once I left the job that was draining me, I began socializing with my friends, and piece by piece, I started to regain myself. I am now very confident, with no sign of depression, and living my best life. Sometimes I have lazy days where I do nothing at all, but I allow myself those days. In the back of my mind, I always remember that saying so I don't lose myself again. I remembered who I was, and the game changed. Story 113. Depression is a lifelong battle. It's up to you to take action to help yourself through it. Exercise, eat healthily, get plenty of sunlight, seek therapy, consider medication, and surround yourself with supportive people who will be there for you. It's definitely not easy, but with effort, you will feel much better. Story 114. Engage in activities you enjoy. Continue until you feel exhausted. Persist until it becomes uncomfortable. Keep going until you're tired of it, and then enjoy it even more. Story 115. It's been getting worse again, but what I told my ex a few years ago was that by doing what I want, which might have seemed oversimplified, I meant moving countries, cutting off certain people, starting college in a field I was curious about, being less self-conscious and afraid of embarrassment, being more emotionally expressive, developing hobbies, going outside, journaling, and fixing my sleep schedule. It was really about being true to myself and taking care of myself. Story 116. You never really feel it vanish. You make peace with what brought you there in the first place. Some finally leave it in the past as something that happened, but it doesn't have to define your future. Others find closure and justice from those final conversations when it's with a person. At other times, it's the small things that encourage someone to keep moving forward. Keep peeking around the next corner. Keep wondering what will happen tomorrow. In time, we realize that you still have a whole life left to live, like a book with pages you haven't filled in yet. Story 117. 10 months of slowly crawling my way through it. It's hell, and while I would wish it on my worst enemy because I'm an awful person, I certainly wouldn't wish it on anyone else. I wish I could have afforded therapy and medication, but I couldn't. My dog helped. He wouldn't eat until I did. And one day I realized he hadn't eaten in 2 days because I hadn't eaten in 2 days. That's when I started taking steps. I forced myself, through sheer guilt, to make food, eat food, and do one self-care thing each day. Then two. Then I did one minor bit of cleaning per day, like wiping off a counter. Then more. I just kept stacking it. And it was hard to do. Seriously, if you have the option, consider therapy and medication. Story 118. I received prescription medication when I needed it. I kept in touch with supportive family through daily text and chat. I deactivated several social media accounts permanently. I left a toxic workplace. Making necessary changes in everyday life will have the biggest impact. Story 119. It depends on where I find myself on the spiral downward. If I notice it soon enough, I can force myself to make plans with people and get out of the house. If that's not an option, at least sitting on the porch for 30 minutes to an hour a day has a big impact on me. I might still feel down, but it's less numbing than simply staying in bed. If I notice it too late, I set up a day or sometimes an entire weekend to cry. I watch sad shows and movies that help me express my feelings. I truly let myself experience the sadness, and then the next day, I pick myself up and have a home spa day. I do my nails, my hair, my entire skincare routine, and focus on small things that bring me joy and make me feel healthier. I spent so much time trying to fight my way out of feeling sad and numb that I would get stuck in the cycle. Now I allow myself to experience those negative emotions, let off some steam, and rise up instead of falling into the paralysis caused by my depression. Story 120. I roleplay as if I were happy. I must say, my depressed self is quite entertaining, while my happy self should take more notes. But unfortunately, she's too busy living life. Story 121. I am not out of it, but it has certainly gotten better. Medication has significantly helped reduce mood swings and suicidal thoughts, along with quitting drinking. Story 122. Prayer and being surrounded by people I love is important to me. I experience bouts of depression, and since I am introverted, I naturally enjoy spending time alone. When I feel myself slipping into depression, I try not to isolate myself from others. My wife is very observant. She provides me with the extra attention I may not want but ultimately need. Story 123. I didn't because it is connected to a chronic mental illness, so I just keep going even though it is hard. Story 124. I started feeling depressed at about 12 years old. I attempted to take my life at 13. After that, I was not allowed to see my friends and was isolated at home for a while. The only thing that kept me going was my cat. We tried various therapists, but nothing was working for me. I did not really get better until I was 16 when I started taking my antidepressant medication, Celexa. Sometimes, the cause is simply a chemical imbalance in the brain rather than primarily external factors. However, it is different for everyone. In my case, mental illness runs in my family, and I unfortunately received the short end of the stick. Story 125. It's always been there, in the darkest corner of your mind, creeping back quickly whenever you are in a vulnerable state. So you try to forget it, to lock it away, and keep yourself busy with something, anything. But no matter how many years have passed, it will never leave. To those who are still fighting, you are strong, and thank you for staying with us. Story 126. I am still working on this myself, but one good option I found is a book called The Upward Spiral. It addresses this very topic. I have also learned over time that alcohol consumption worsens my depression and anxiety for several days. Story 127. Talk to yourself and affirm that you are happy. Engage in walking, exercise, self-grooming, and self-love. Pamper yourself because you deserve it. Story 128. I did not isolate myself. I grew closer to my friends and family and pushed myself out of my comfort zone. I realized that I was finding comfort in my depression, which affected my physical appearance. Despite how hard it was for me, I got out of bed, talked to people, and changed my lifestyle. Most importantly, I dedicated time to my hobbies. It took me over 4 years, but I started with small steps and am proud of who I am today. Story 129. I have been unresponsive to medication for major depressive disorder for 10 years. I have started ketamine lozenges, and I believe I can see some light at the end of the tunnel. I finally have hope. I wish all of you the best in finding your way. Story 130. I found a vape cartridge with the perfect balance of low THC and high CBG. It helps alleviate my emotions while providing energy for increased productivity. I also watched It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It's a dark comedy that is incredibly hilarious. I've experienced significant trauma in my life, and this show helped me through the darkest periods of my depression. Story 131. Cut off toxic people without a second thought. I listened to energetic music and went for walks at night with headphones on, as I enjoy the night. I couldn't eat full meals all at once, so I started having small snacks throughout the day. This really helped my appetite. I played video games to distract myself, which also allowed me to feel some emotions. One day, I looked in the mirror and told myself that crying and lying in bed was only making things worse and not helping. So, I decided I wouldn't cry anymore. I was strict with this commitment and managed to cry less every day until I started to feel better. Story 132. A mental health crisis led me to an official diagnosis in a mental hospital. I am now taking Seroquel and Prozac. In less than 3 months, I have gained weight, Resumed working full-time after almost 2 years, started meeting friends again, and have become open to the possibility of forming relationships. It wasn't just the medication. A lot of it was the small habits I formed while the medication was starting to take effect. Thank you, Prozac. Story 133. I moved to a new town, walking and letting go of negative people and those who were not growing. I am also attending Al-Anon. Story 134. Change your diet, routine, and environment. This helps to eliminate anything causing you stress, such as debts. Fresh air and hiking in the hills are beneficial. Story 135. It's something you can never truly get over if the root reasons can't be changed. But you just have to adopt the "it is what it is" mentality. Hiking, going to the gym, spending time with pets, enjoying good food, and being with good friends, along with the occasional overseas trip, can help. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.